Welcome back to Beyond the Singularity, where we speculate, percolate, and exasperate all things sci-fi. I'm your host, Kyle Culver, gaming as Diabetic Gamer, and you are listening to Episode 2. In this episode, I get to talk to Moulesmariner, a user on the ETARC forums, Discord, and a crucial person in helping the Waking Titan ARG move forward. We talked about his adventure of meeting Agent 59 in London, and the multiple answers he had to give. We talked about the community of No Man's Sky, and we go a little bit into the fascinating details of the ARG. Where did you find out about Waking Titan, and how did you get involved?
Well, it was all a bit by mistake. I'd come back to playing No Man's Sky around the beginning of June. I'd played at launch and got somewhat disinterested with the volume of the content. So I thought, as there'd been 2 patches, I'd come back and have a look. And then in game, I needed some information, so I'd searched out Discord, and then I saw the Waking Titan link to the radio stations. Before the Seychelles broadcast had gone live, and from there I signed up to the ETARC website, and it all rattled on from there.
Nice. And on the ETARCs, you were you very active on there, or were you kind of like more of a lurker trying to figure this out kind of thing?
Initially, I lurked for a bit, and then I got sort of sucked into the all the Easter eggs on the Hamlet references, and that seemed like quite an interesting puzzle. I felt it was a shame that they didn't run with that a little bit more. They went more down the Black Watchman type puzzles with the paste bins and the web searches. So yeah, it was that's how I got involved and got hooked.
Okay. Did you were you a part of the Black Watchman? Have you played that?
I hadn't, but I've started playing season 1 of that, and I'm finding that quite fun. But I guess
okay.
Yeah, so it's been good.
The whole Hamlet stuff, are you into that kind of literature?
Well, over the years, I've read quite a bit. I used to travel on the train a lot to work, so I used to consume novels at 2 or 3 novels a week, and eventually you do have to sort of hit the classics. So yeah, it sort of ticked a couple of boxes, really.
Nice. Going into all of the puzzles, wanting to get back into the literature, did you find yourself being attracted to any other kind of puzzle that was happening in Waking Titan?
Do you know what? I learned a lot through the process. There was a lot of the sort of the HTML scraping, and and people really going sort of in depth into that side of things. Yeah, I found the collective process interesting, and it was the cryptography was fun. I found some of the ciphers quite entertaining, and it was an all-round challenge, and I think that's what kept people interested and going. I think there was a little something for everyone.
Totally, yeah, and I mean that's why you got into the literature thing, and you wanted that to continue. And I kind of agree. It is a bummer they didn't continue that, because we had a few references to it at the very, very, very start of some of the clues, and then like in the middle of the first sequence, it just kind of they didn't go back.
Yeah, it fizzled out. I mean, we got through a lot of the Greek mythology and Norse mythology with the Titans, right. And then there was mentions of Fays and God knows what else. And I mean, on the first Ep02, I think that was the first site. There was a lot of sort of literature Easter eggs in there, which they never really expanded on.
Yeah.
I guess the big question there is did we actually miss something?
Oh, dude, that's been my question going forward for all of these puzzles. Did we miss something? What else is there?
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the sort of the debrief after the closing email, I think we have. I think the process was more organic than we gave it credit for.
More organic, like
Well, I think, yeah, I think Alison Smith were watching and listening and seeing how we evolved through the puzzles more than we actually thought, and I think they were changing it as we went to fit with the community.
Oh yeah. That's been really interesting to see that happen. The one thing I think about is the colors in the poll. They gave numbers that equaled out to an RGB color profile.
That's right. The pink. I think it was pink.
Yes,
In the end, for whatever reason.
Yeah, like don't really know what that signifies, but the fact that we were actively changing things in the ARG and they were acting on those changes made that not just interesting, but like almost like they were kind of telling us, hey, we are paying attention. And I feel like they did that kind of throughout.
Yeah, I mean that was a constant process, and I think that became very clear during the sort of third phase with the designations. I think there's more to come with that. That hasn't been fully explained, and I think they were maybe trying to group people together who wouldn't necessarily be grouped together.
I was just talking to one of the other YouTubers, and we were talking about how it's great that those small groups you throw up on Twitter saying, hey, I'm part of HD16 or whatever. And then someone else comes in and says, oh, hey, me too. And then suddenly you guys hit it off and like, oh, let's meet in the game. Let's go to the hub. Let's do this. Let's do that. And you suddenly make a new friend.
Yeah, exactly. It brought that whole new social element to it. And I think with the most recent patch and with the exploring with your blue orbs.
Yes.
I think it's part of the process into sort of some sort of multiplayer. But
what's really cool about that is how that process, the multiplayer process, is directly entangled into the story. So all of their technical setbacks seem like they're on purpose because it's for a greater storytelling purpose.
Sure. Yeah, I mean I'm still sort of working through the story in of this pack. I spent so I spent rather too much time getting my farming up and getting a ship.
See, I hadn't even started that.
Yeah, the grind is real, I'm afraid.
It's real. So talking about parts, community, specific tasks, you were part of the ARG. You were kind of a really big part. You went to the London live drop. This was in the first sequence, am I correct?
Yeah, that's I mean, obviously there was the first drop in Boston. I think it was Boston. I may be wrong. And then this one came up in London. That was all rather a random day, to be honest. I hadn't anticipated leaping on a train and charging 40 miles into London and trundling across town.
It seemed like you were the only one who responded to this on the eTark forums.
Yeah, it was. Well, I was actually on eTark and I was on Discord, and no one was taking any ownership at all. And I just found I found that frustrating. It's one of the interesting things with communities that if somebody doesn't take a lead, then things don't tend to happen. It always needs somebody to take some ownership, and I guess I sat and watched and waited and surprisingly no one actually piped up from London. I said, well, I'm an hour out, but I'll go, and that was it.
Was that between the announcement of there's a live drop happening to the actual live drop? What time frame was that? Was that just a couple hours?
So I think we knew there was a live drop happening about 12 o'clock, and I was on a train. I think I might be an hour out or so, but I was on the train an hour later heading up to
gosh.
And then I charged across London, and I think I made the drop just sort of sometime around 3 o'clock. So
Wow. So you just jumped up and went.
Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation with my wife. Try to explain to her what exactly I was doing, and I wasn't quite as mad as it seemed, and off I went. But
Yeah.
that whole afternoon was just crazy. The amount of information I took on board was nuts, and I think we overcooked it somewhat. So when I arrived with the password, it
Right.
weren't.
So the requirements going into this thing were to find how are you going to identify the person, and they said the passcode was what was the first, right?
Yeah, and obviously the community we overthought it. You know that and I say we. I was just a bit more in a daze by this time, but so obviously I'd reached out to the Discord community and just to decide on what the passcode was, and obviously everybody was going, what was the first? And then before you knew it, we had 16, Orion, Hyperion. We had a number. I think I had about 5 passwords in the end.
Try any of them, just let them fly. Which
Yeah,
one
that's right.
sticks?
I'm going to come up trumps in the end.
Yeah, I like how the Agent 59 was like, "Do you have any other passcodes? Like, giving you
Yeah,
a second shot."
she was. I'm sure in other circumstances she would have been lovely, but it was at the time it was quite quite intimidating. She was.
Now it sounded like she had an American accent. Am I wrong?
Yeah, American or Canadian. It's I'm obviously very British, so I sound like I'm Australian, I imagine, and you guys sound equally as confusing. So
Equally.
so North American without upsetting our Canadian friends.
Whatever. We're neighbors. They understand.
But yeah, so
What kind of conversation was it before and after the recording? Because we heard the recording, and I remember messaging you and you saying, "No, that was all her. They recorded the whole thing." And
they
once
really
once
did.
that word went out, we were all like, "Well, that's kind of weird, but kind of cool at the same time."
We so I walked into the lobby of the hotel,
Hmm.
and then looked across the lobby, and she had her back to the door, and obviously wearing the 59 hockey or football shirt.
Hmm.
Um, so the first thing is how do you go about walking up to a random person with some random gaming information and introduce yourself. So I remember walking around into the air and walking up to the table and just sort of saying, "Hey, are you expecting someone?" And she looked at me and asked me who I was. Well, she asked me what my designation was,
Uh,
and obviously I said Moulesmariner, being because that was the handle they'd used on the phone message.
yeah, that was
Um,
pretty cool.
and then she said, do you have, would you mind if I record this? And obviously off we went from there.
Oh, so she told you she was recording.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she asked whether I, would you happy if I record this?
Well, that's
And
good.
that's exactly what exactly what she did. At the time, it never occurred to me because obviously I didn't know about the phone messages. Uh,
Right, because you were in transit.
that's exactly. So I just assumed that these were like electronic messages, had been a voice synthesized, on the phone. And no, it
Yeah.
turns out it wasn't at all. They were generally recorded. So yeah, so we sat down. She asked me if I had the password, and obviously I personally now on reflection, it was what was the first, yeah. But we went through as the message. As the audio showed, I went through a list of passwords, and she was exceptionally encouraging. But I just don't think we got there with it. So
How nervous has that got to be, knowing you're being recorded, talking to an NPC of the Waking Titan, and having hundreds of people dying to know what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was more worried about the community. You guys, or the community as a whole, can be quite toxic, right? So
Yeah, no,
which is the same
to say the
in
least.
any gaming community, right?
Sure.
So yeah, so it was quite a nervy moment. So I'm glad she was businesslike. I think if given time to actually sit there and think about what I was doing, it might have been a different outcome. I might have bottled it at the last minute, and then we wouldn't have got that clue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's definitely made it much more entertaining. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we went through. So after that, we had the dialogue. Obviously, we didn't hit the password, but they handed over an envelope, and in there was a number of goodies, and then she opened her notepad up and wrote the note out on her pad and tore it out of her notebook, and said, "Right, that's it, I'm off." And said, "Thank you very much," and I've got a plane to catch, and off she went across the lobby, which was and that was it. It was a fight. It really was 5 or 6 minutes, and it was all done.
Nice.
Yeah. So then I got up and went to the bar and had a beer and built
Good
up
British fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stiff upper lip and all that. And once I had a beer in hand, I built a bit of tension on Discord, and then obviously put a screenshot up on eTark on Discord, and I think somebody had it solved before I'd even made it back to the train, which was just absolutely crazy. And this community hasn't it hasn't stopped amazing me since that time, because
man, they're on it.
Solving these puzzles has just been amazing.
I think people like us who view these puzzles and are infatuated with them, but can't really figure it out, can appreciate these people much more.
So some of the puzzles and the speed they were getting, just absolutely amazing. And yeah, I think you're either really switched onto them or you're not. And I think a lot of it comes from. It could be generational. I'm slightly older than the average No Man's Sky player, so
I don't know. The age range has kind of it's very wide, I've noticed.
Well, there's a few other people around, I've met along the way since Waking Titan who've held their hand up and said, yeah, I was gaming on an Atari, 2100 as well, yeah.
Nice.
2-bit graphics was cool.
Yeah, there you go. It was cool. It was.
It was, yeah.
So, did you ask to take the pictures of her?
Yeah, I asked if I could take a picture of the shirt. I think it was one of the things I thought people would ask.
Okay, so okay, you had a good mind for the community. That's awesome, man.
So I mean, it was all about the community. I mean, I didn't do it for myself. I mean, I don't choose to go into London just for fun. Yeah. So
did you have to call in work and say, hey, I'm going to be late?
No, nothing like that. No.
Oh, okay.
It was a weekend. It was a Saturday, so it was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So no, it was more to the point of explaining, as I said to my why I was suddenly leaping out the house and hopping on the train. But no, I mean the whole experience and rushing across, because obviously it was time. They said there was a time constraint.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really was on it. I mean, I ran across Victoria Station and down into the tube and then hopped on a tube and then across a tube, and then unfortunately Green Day, I think, were playing right outside in the park outside of the hotel. So it was absolutely rammed as well.
Wow.
Uh,
It's like a
with
movie.
people and like touts selling tickets, and so I had to, work out where I was and get through the crowd, and make sure I wasn't being followed or was going to be assassinated on the way.
The excitement, the tension. Get a little bit of a James Bond moment there.
Yeah. I mean, if I'd been wearing a trilby and had a carnation in my jacket, it would have worked. Yeah.
Toss the beer out. Give me a martini.
Yeah.
So,
no,
would you say all of that, between all of that and all of Waking Titan, what was your favorite moment?
do you know what? Some of the funniest moments were with the Twitch stream at the end, with Mr. Nibbles, who turned out to be Mrs. Nibbles.
Right.
Nibbles? It was Nibbles. I can't think of
Noodles.
Noodles. Thank you. Yeah, which was
Noodles.
Which was an ongoing joke from the beginning of the arc, the whole noodle thing. So it was good. I think that was funny. I think one of the more frustrating moments was watching the people doing the locked room exercise.
Oh goodness.
I mean, I'm not one for sitting in front of my computer and shouting at the screen, but oh my god. So it was that was fun and frustrating.
That's really interesting. I had never been a part of an escape room before, and I've only watched them. I don't know. I saw a bit on Conan, where he was in an escape room with one of his producers, which was absolutely hilarious. But I'd never been a part of those before, so it was I wish I could say something about it.
I mean, those people were stars, obviously, in their own right, and getting in there and having a crack at it. But it's very hard to explain to people how much information, especially when you're looking at Discord or you're looking at the web, and there's a lot of people trying to interact at the same time, how quickly that information scrolled past you.
Oh yeah.
So it took a while for the community to just sort of take a breath and start giving them sensible information.
Sensible information. I know I was watching one of the main Periscope streams that one of the guys was doing, and I heard him constantly say, "No, we already tried that number, guys. We already tried that number." And it's just the scrolling of details going past, and you have the people putting down the same number and over again, and then you might miss that one that's different that might be correct, and it's a lot. It is a lot.
It is a lot, yeah, and it's where I guess we sort of failed with the whole passcode with the London drop. It is that there was a lot of people trying to get their say, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but that information ideally could have been consolidated, right?
Yeah, it also makes me love Waking Titan all the more because of how inclusive it makes the community. It puts mechanics together to not just encourage the people to get together and figure this out, but to also kind of give them an avenue on conversation and how to really get connected and figure it out, which is fantastic. I can't tip my hat enough to Waking Titan to figuring that out. So
it's been, I mean, for Hello Games and Sean Murray and the team, I mean, it must have been a really nice way to see how the pulse of the game was at that time. And you could really see, like, once it had been properly established that it was the prelude to the patch, the 1.3 patch, that you could see the enthusiasm and people, getting more and more and more, because they till I guess the beginning of phase 2, where I guess the portals and the there was more focus on the glyphs, but it was still, is this an ARG? What's this related to? And Yeah, so the way it all came together was great fun. But sitting around and listening to, I don't know if you sat and listened to the Howard Stern radio.
The stations?
With it.
No,
Oh my
not Howard Stern.
Oh, it's some of the worst and most amusing radio I've ever listened to. I mean, it was horrible. It really was. But for them to organise fake adverts and insert them into obviously premium shows as well. I mean, that it showed
That's phenomenal.
a tenacity really of Addison
Yeah.
Smith and what they do, and they do it so well.
I love the little adverts too. The voice acting in those things is so um is so ridiculous. It's funny. Because you got, a lady, I think, yeah, the first one for Echo was a lady complaining about her grandmother being gone, and then you have the grandmother speaking back in a mechanically kind of like machine voice, and then the daughter laughs or cries, and then it's like, I think it's more funny than creepy, and each one
Yeah,
kind of did another funny bit after another.
yeah. I mean, I think it caused an an individual to possibly emote in a different way towards the ARG as it moved forward. I mean, it was thought provocative at times. I think.
Yeah. How'd you feel when the whole thing was finally over? We got the final message from Sean saying we're getting 1.3. Patch notes are coming soon. How did you feel? Were you playing the game at that time? Yeah, you were.
I was. Unfortunately, during the last week of the ARG, I was actually away on vacation and banned from the computer, and so I was sneaking onto my phone every now and then trying to keep up.
If I could make a poll of how many people had to talk to their significant others, and the conversations that you're talking about, if I could make a poll of how many people had to go through that.
It's just, I mean, you either get these, don't, I mean, it was, my wife's got used to me over a number of years now, doing somewhat crazy random things with computer games, and it's always been part of me and part of our relationship, so it wasn't too surprising. But yeah, it's there's times where it can get in the way. But no, I mean, it was. I don't know. There was a number of emotions. I guess there was a bit of relief. There was a lot of excitement with regard to the patch. I mean, I was quite at launch. I was quite disappointed with the game. I mean, we'd waited quite a long time for it.
Mm-hmm.
Been on the bandwagon or the hype train, as it were, for 2 years before that. I'd seen the original sort of trailers and what they were trying to achieve at E3 2 years or 3 years before the actual release. So when it came out, it was very disappointing. But now I think they're sort of in a place now with what they said they were going to deliver. I think they've delivered. I think it's worth the bang for the bucks now. I think there's enough content.
Now it makes me wonder if they didn't have so many setbacks in production that they did, would they still go along with this ARG?
I think they needed to find a way to reboot this, and to start hyping it. I mean, Hello Games did a fantastic media job. I guess Sean Murray's enthusiasm for what their teams created really shone through, and obviously there was a lot of disappointed people to start with. But I think they tried to stop those voices and do something different and build the enthusiasm of the community via something else. And I think the ARG, it's been great.
And boy, was it different.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been involved in anything like this or seen anything like this. I know there's been a few conferences and things which have used ARG to gain people, but but not to this scale, at least.
Yeah, when we first started in the first sequence, going into all the websites, all I could think about was the production of this thing and how much all of that cost. The airtime on the radio stations, the website designs. You don't just grab stock images and throw them up somewhere. Like you have to purchase a license for those things. Um,
Yeah,
Designers, I'm yeah, other things I can't even think about right now, but just all those little details. I know how much all that costs, and I can't even imagine the kind of production that went into that. And so that alone blew me away, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pay attention to this. This is obviously something.
yeah. I mean, the way they pulled it all together. I mean, but the way the community disseminated all of that so fast as well, and they knew where the stock images had come from, what templates they were using in WordPress, and God knows what else, down to the font they were using on the Waking Titan website. For God's sake, I mean, it was just amazing, So no, really an eye opener.
One dedicated community, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So at the end of all this, we have our update, and as we mentioned before, we're kind of in a null right now, just kind of chilling, waiting, going through the story in No Man's Sky. What do you see in the future of this ARG? What do you
Well,
think is going to happen?
I think there's more to go. I mean, the patches have always been slightly progressive, right?
Mm,
I think they're going to add some more content. I think the story isn't finished yet in game, at
mm.
least. But I mean, with the ARG, we've got another 6 glyphs left to open.
Six.
So I think, I think we've got 6 more. I mean, the last one, the Dino glyph, and I think
Mm.
after that, there's another page of glyphs yet to be opened. So it'll be interesting what they do with that, and whether it's just going to come online again, or something's going to be found in game. There's any number of
Yeah,
ways.
I kind of hope they do that. I kind of hope they bring it more in the game itself. Not like 100%, but kind of make it parallel to the game. I think that'd be really interesting. Kind of like with the com balls, but a little
Yeah,
more intuitive.
adding clues. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody's going to find a monolith with something on the monolith. I mean,
Yeah.
they could insert that easily at a random time.
I'm still searching for Easter eggs. Like everywhere I go, I'm always looking like really, really close to the grass to make sure I don't miss something.
And that's great. I mean, maybe it has made people look a bit, look into the lore a little bit more, and keep their eyes open.
Yeah. Well, that's it, man. It's nothing but No Man's Sky from here. How are
Yeah,
you enjoying the new update?
I'm really enjoying it. I'd missed the previous 2 patches. I wasn't quite. I was rather disgruntled. So it's taken nearly a year to sort of put those 80 hours I originally played aside, and come back and take a look. So yeah, but no, I'm really enjoying. I'm now just in a position to start following through on the Atlas storyline, and the this new being storyline as well, the Travelers storyline. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to avoid reading too much, and getting those spoilers in first, so I can work it through. But I think people have a lot more game time than I do. So
You and me both, I think. I work a full-time job and I still have trouble finding, and I also making the videos, doing these interviews. It's hard to find that middle ground, but I'm definitely going through the story too. I'm super stoked.
but no, it's been really good.
All right, man. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much again for your time.
Cheers, Carl. Thanks for talking.
Moulesmariner can be found on the eTark forums, now the CSD forums, as Moulesmariner, and you can follow me on Twitter at Culver, Kulver. so you know when each podcast goes live. A special thanks to JayKob for providing the music for this episode, and until next time, we'll see you beyond the Singularity, travelers.